no standard thing.
But they do reserve the right to review it. The North Florida Aquifer Replenishment Initiative, this is the whole of North Florida. The Atkins work kind of falls underneath this umbrella of what we're doing for all of our recharge concepts that we're trying to come up with for North Florida. Now, this is a St. John's initiative that's mainly focused in the Keystone Heights area, because that's where we're seeing of course everybody knows we're seeing the lakes are going down, and we need some water back in the lake. What you have received a memo that was sent to St. John's yesterday, and that was handed out in Santa Fe room a while ago, where there was one of the potential projects that was proposed in one of the Clay Putnam Recovery Prevention Strategy meetings, was to divert some water out of the upper Santa Fe during high flows and divert it into the Keystone area through the Etnai chain, which would reduce the amount of flow coming into the upper Santa Fe basin. Now, their umbrella was to do this as a flood control project before we start. And staff is not in support of this project because the lower Santa Fe appears that we've come to you before and said the lower Santa Fe appears that it's going to be in recovery. The upper Santa Fe directly feeds the lower Santa Fe. So any water that we take out of the upper Santa Fe will put us in further recovery in the lower Santa Fe, and that's just not good for the Swanee River District.
I think you should let Mary Lee respond to that.
Well, that I'm very pleased to hear. Considering they found the endangered species recently, that also helps. The water in there.
But we have other projects that we can work on to mitigate the flooding, and we can handle that within our district. Other projects, now the St. John's
says we don't need water that's flowing in our direction to be diverted anywhere.
And that's within the authority of the governing board, in statute, for that water to be diverted into St. John's would require your consideration and vote. There's like 7 or 9 different elements that you.
We can do it Friday.
Yes.
Yeah.
That takes care of that.
We were saying we was continuing that meeting, we're opening back up, continuing.
Well, I got a question. I mean, obviously the idea of diverting water from the most troubled part of our district is quite troubling. But in theory, if we need to get water in the ground, when that river floods, that water is on its way to the Gulf. Now, it might improve the downstream for a couple of days. Then it's passed by that. And what they're talking about is only diverting off floodwater, correct? So, after it reached a certain height, it would dump off into some reservoir. Is that right?
That's the words that are coming. I'm not sure there's not a detailed plan for when they would stop taking water, or when they would start taking water.
And I don't know exactly how this would work, but we have discussed as a project before using floodwaters from the Swanee. This is not necessarily a different concept, as long as it's not pulling water out of the river when the rivers have, say, normal flows or something. But so somebody was putting on a presentation a month or two ago and said that 70% of the flow of the Swanee came from springs, right? I would imagine Santa Fe is quite similar, that it's not all just runoff, surface runoff, it's supplied by springs. But if we can't get some water back in the ground in that region.
But that particular area on the lower Santa Fe River is also recharged. We have a tremendous amount of swallowed siphons, and the pressure, when that river gets to a certain level, any level up higher, it can actually push the water back down, and it is a recharge.
Okay.
So if you talk about diverting any surface water,
You're lessening the pressure on the recharge. And the question then becomes, there's a few of them. One is the difference in the pressure and the recharge there are going to be offset or exceeded by flood water that would be pulled off the top. And then second, probably more important question, is this the best use of our resource, or our money to do a recharge project? And I don't know if it is or not, but I just want to caution the board not to scoff at something just because it's in a sensitive area, because it's gone down the creek when it's a flood. I mean, it's done in a couple of days.
But then down the creek, you got your estuaries and your fish, habitats, and, I mean,
We can't conserve, I know you want to conserve our way to fix the problem. It can't be done solely by conservation. I
well,
know that.
what I want to see happen is y'all stop issuing so many permits. That's what I really want.
I would like for you
You
to
get
take
people to quit
about
having babies.
14 million people on the state. Because the 17 million people that are drinking on the water are pulling out more than the farmers in the water management district, in this water management.
The problem is the population of this state and the world is increasing, and with that happening, the demands on water just continue to grow. Yes, sir.
Just wanted to point out, with the Santa Fe Basin, you notice that it doesn't correspond to the water management district lines, the red line. I think it's the water management district line. And that's a bit of a problem because right now St. John's is about to get a permit to pump out of their district, but it's actually in the Santa Fe Basin for this. And the concept is to fill up, or use it to study filling up the lakes. And it also means that that water that is coming off the DuPont mine site that originally pre-mining would have come into the Santa Fe Basin now is in fact going down to the lakes, into the upper Etmai chain. So you already are losing part of the water that should be coming into the Santa Fe Basin. And on top of that, the Keystone people have requiring that DuPont pump water off that they're using from their mine processing a certain amount down to the Keystone Lake. So there's already a significant diversion of water out of the Santa Fe Basin over to the basin chain as it is. And so it was, the proposals that they were making to take even more were very disturbing. And most of us who live in Bradford County don't see a significant problem with the water that we're getting. So we're very concerned about the proposal, and I was really very glad to see this memo, and hopefully that will stop at least that part of the process. But I think you also should be looking at getting back the water that should have been going all this time, basically into the Santa Fe swamp and supporting flow down the Santa Fe.
Well, it's my understanding that when DuPont reclaims their mine site, that they have to return all the flows that were originally in the basin back to the basin. So that's going to be fixed when they reclaim that southern mine area.
The problem is that most of that site doesn't have to be reclaimed. It was pre-mined prior to the requirement to reclaim. And so that's the issue.
Now, the one other project I want to talk about is St. John staff is proposing a reclaim water project from sources further to the east to be brought over and put into this chain. I'm not sure, Warren, do you have any more details on that project as far as what
Sure. We have an implementation. I'm Warren Zlaka with St. John's, and incidentally, for the record, this diversion that we keep talking about is not a St. John's proposal.